Now we move to our next speaker, Debolina Bandyopadhyay from SINP.
Ye-
The title of the
Yes.
talk is Multi-State Conformational Dynamics of Polypurine Reverse Hookstein Hairpin and Capturing the Triplex of Gene Silencing, SMFRET Approach. Now, please, Debolina, start your presentation. You have 12 minutes for presentation and then 3 minutes for question answer. Please.
Thank you. So, Tithi, can you see my screen?
No, it is not visible.
Okay. Okay. Is my screen visible now?
Oh. Yeah, now it is visible. Yeah, it's
Okay.
visible.
Okay. So, hello everyone. Thank you for giving me opportunity to present in Gangia. So, my title is Multi-State Conformational Dynamics of PPRH and Capturing the Triplex for Gene Silencing using the process of SMFRET or Single Molecule FRET. So, before I start, I just want to give a brief introduction about reverse Hookstein bonds.
Sorry, Debolina, could you just go to full screen?
Yes.
Yeah, it'll be better for us. Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah. So, like now it is in full screen. Is it visible? Hello?
Yeah, it is visible. But have you go to the presentation mode?
Right. I have gone to the presentation mode.
Yeah, it is visible.
Okay, so things are fine.
It's not
Can I
full
continue?
screen. It's not full screen.
Okay, so actually I have few animations. So
I think it's not in the presentation mode. Just
Okay,
go to the
go ahead. I think Debolina, go ahead. Let's.
okay, can I go ahead now?
But the animations may not show if it's not full screen. Sorry, Vidisha. So maybe, Debolina, have you shared a window or the screen?
I've shared a window because while I was sharing.
Sometimes that gives a problem. That was the same issue with my presentation. So maybe you can share your whole screen to get it to the actual presentation mode. Because you are in the presentation mode in your opinion right now, right?
Right. I'm in the presentation.
So we don't see it like that, and your animations that you said you have will not work. So just share the whole screen.
Okay, just a second.
Yeah, sorry, Vidisha. I know you wanted to go ahead, but if she has.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. Actually, I should apologize to the chairperson, Tithi. Sorry, Tithi, but I think
no, ma'am, it's okay. You solved your problem. Thank you for that.
Well, it's not yet solved. Let's see.
Yeah, it's not solved because I cannot like see my presentation in the entire screen stuff. Just a second.
We have buffer time. No worries. Debolina,
actually, I'm not able to share. There is no share option coming while sharing the entire screen. That's the error here.
okay. You go ahead with whatever you can.
Yeah, I think that's better.
Okay. Unfortunately, I'm not getting the share option in the entire screen. So can I just continue with the window one option?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Now it is fine. Right.
Okay, but we can't see your presentation yet, huh? Yeah, it's present. Yeah, you are presenting now.
Yeah. Okay. So before starting, I just want to give a brief introduction about reverse Hookstein bonds. So reverse Hookstein bond take place between two homopurine residues when they are inversely mirror symmetrical to each other. So these are the type of hydrogen bonds which comes into a picture. when so these are the type of hydrogen bonds which come into picture when two adenine residues or two guanine residues are mirror symmetrical to each other, and these are the bonds which are finally termed as reverse Hooke's-Steen bonds. Now,
Sorry, Debolina, if you're changing your slide, it's not changing for us. Huh?
yes, okay.
You are on slide 1 or 2?
I am in slide 1 itself.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. So like right now I'm are the pictures of adenine and guanine.
So this is the introduction slide, like the title slide.
Oops. Okay. So can't you see this, like the second slide right now?
It is multi-scale, your title slide only. The slide has not changed.
Oops. I don't know where is the error now.
It did, now it has changed. You can proceed. Yeah. We can see your second slide. You can go ahead.
Okay, okay. Yeah. Okay. So, these are the kind of bonds which comes into picture when two adenine residues when two adenine residues are mirror symmetrically opposite to each other, and these give rise to a bond which are termed as reverse Hooke's-Steen bonds. And similarly, when two homoguanine residues come across each other through mirror symmetrical orientation, these are the kind of hydrogen bonds which comes into picture, and they are termed as GG reverse Hooke's-Steen bonds. Now, once an adenine is bonded with another adenine using reverse Hooke's-Steen bond, then it is available for a pyrimidine or thymine to indulge in a triplex formation. So this is the type of hydrogen bond which comes into picture when there is a triplex bonding between two adenine, between double-stranded adenine units and one single one single thymine unit. And this is the kind of hydrogen bond which comes into picture when a triplex gets formed involving two guanine residues and one cytosine residue. Two guanine residues and one cytosine residue. So yeah. So now when we have a stretch of continuous homopurine residues, then they get involved into a hair, like they get extrapolated into the form of a hairpin when we have a 5 thymidine units loop region. So basically, homopurine guanine and adenine residues, when are mirror symmetrically opposite to each other, interrupted by 5 thymine units, they get extrapolated into the form of a hairpin, indulging themselves in reverse Hooke's-Steen type of hydrogen bonds. And these type of structures are termed as PPRH, polypurine reverse Hooke's-Steen hairpins. Now, when this PPRH approaches one target sequence having the complementary polypyrimidine residues, even if it is a double-stranded DNA, what happens? The double-stranded DNA gets unzipped from its cognate polypurine residues and involve itself in triplex motif having one hairpin and one single-stranded DNA. So the intramolecular hydrogen bonds within the hairpin is reverse Hooke's-Steen, and the intermolecular hydrogen bond between the hairpin and the polypyrimidine residue is Watson-Crick. So finally, there is a structure of triplex motif where we have both reverse Hooke's-Steen and Hooke's-Steen bonding. Reverse Hooke's-Steen is between the homopurine residues, and Watson-Crick bonding is between the hairpin and the single-stranded polypyrimidine residue. So this is the structural information, or this is the structural information about PPRH, polypurine reverse Hooke's-Steen hairpin. Now, like we would, I'll just give a brief introduction.
Your slide is not changing. It is still in slide number 2. You were changing your slide, right?
Right. I changed it. Yeah. Okay. Now is it changing?
This is gene regulation by.
Right. Yeah, this is the one. Right. Yeah. So okay. So gene regulation. Now I'll just give a brief introduction about how gene regulation pathway takes place in presence of PPRH. So what PPRH does is that whenever it gets a cognate polypyrimidine region, it forms a triplex with the cognate polypyrimidine residue. And finally, during the process of transcription, whenever there is a bubble formation and there is introduction of single-stranded DNA in the vicinity, PPRH goes and binds with the polypyrimidine cognate residues and blocks it right there. So if there is a interruption by a triplex motif which comes into picture due to PPRH, RNA polymerase cannot bind and the process of transcription does not continue, and hence there is gene repression. Now, another process where PPRH comes into picture is during the translation. Now, while the ribosome goes on translating the mRNA, there is a chance that the single-stranded mRNA which formed, wherever there is cognate polypyrimidine stretch unit, PPRH goes and binds with the polypyrimidine units and blocks the gene right there, which does not allow ribosome to proceed, and hence the process of translation also gets blocked. So the process, so the involvement of PPRH in the process of gene regulation comes into picture during transcription as well as translation. During transcription, it blocks RNA polymerase, and during translation, it does not allow ribosome to proceed in order to carry out the process of translation. So next, so are my slides changing?
No, it's stuck.
Devolina, I think you should have
Yeah.
put it on slideshow mode.
Yes, yes. Yes.
It's not in slideshow mode. That's why it is not changing. And your slides contain animations.
Right. It is like it is in slideshow mode. It is indeed in slideshow mode.
For
I don't
our
know what-
space, it is not in slideshow mode. Okay. Yeah, your slideshow mode is not working actually.
Yeah,
Is that so?
I think
Is
it would
that-
be better if I think in slideshow mode the problem is happening because this window is not getting shared. So it's better to go in this normal slides view mode. Like when you just
Okay.
scroll through the slides like this. This will be better. Yeah.
Like this.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay then. Yeah. Now are these changing? Hello.
It is in the next slide, like prism type of setup. For
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. Right. Okay. So I have few animation. I think we are going to miss it if like the slideshow
So-
mode is not getting
Sorry
shared.
to interrupt. Your animations will not be shown because it is not in
Yeah.
slideshow mode. So you have
Yeah,
to
I
go through
don't think we
manual.
can help it. Rahul and others, since we have a schedule, I think, the best we can do is to proceed as she's doing. Okay?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Okay, yeah. So, okay, so now I'll just give a brief introduction about prism type turf setup for SMFRE. So basically for prism type turf setup, excitation is done through a prism where where the angle of incidence is kept more than the critical angle, and which leads to generation of evanescent waves, and finally the evanescent waves helps in excitation of the label excitation of the probes which has been used for labeling our sample of interest. So, and then the emitted rays are captured using a CCD camera, and through that we just like correlate the intensity of donor and acceptor, and finally we evaluate that how close they are using FRET efficiency. So this is the experimental setup where donor and acceptor are labeled on the stretch of the polypurine residues. So if hairpin formation does not take place, then donor and acceptor are substantially away from each other, and we are supposed to get a low FRET. Now, in presence of divalent cations, when this hairpin formation will take place, donor and acceptor will come close to each other, and we are supposed to get a high FRET. So, evaluation of either high FRET or low FRET output, we can actually judge that whether hairpin formation is taking place or not. So, basically, this is the FRET efficiency. So this is the FRET efficiency versus time graph, which shows that whenever FRET efficiency is low, basically the hairpin is in unlooped state, and whenever FRET efficiency is high, the hairpin is in looped state. So basically this is the experimental setup where where both the donor and the acceptor are labeled in the polypurine residues, and if hairpin formation does take place, acceptor the intensity of acceptor will be higher than that of the donor, and finally we will be getting a high FRET. So now I'll just put it aside. Okay, yeah. So now in presence of monovalent cations, what it was found that we have got continuous low FRET state. So basically in presence of only monovalent cations, it is not possible for the polypurine residues to indulge itself in hairpin form. So, so basically it is an unlooped state. Now, as soon as there is introduction of divalent cations in the medium, there is a kickstart in the formation of hairpin, and we can actually see that the histogram peak is getting shifted towards the high FRET efficiency state. And in spite of that, we are getting a 3 FRET state. Basically, the hairpin is indulging itself in 3 states. One is unlooped state, another is intermediate loop or partially looped form, and another is high FRET state, which corresponds to the fully formed hairpin. So basically, there is a fluctuation in presence of 1 millimolar MgCl2 concentration. There is a constant fluctuation of the hairpin from looped to unlooped form, or from looped to partially dissociated or partially looped form to that of unlooped form. So here we have got 3 states. Now in presence of 2 millimolar MgCl2, which is close to near physiological concentration of divalent cations, what was found is that most of the time the hairpin prefers to stay in partially dissociated state or partially unbound state. So as we can see from the FRET efficiency curve and the histogram, that the hairpin is like ready to so being in the partially dissociated state or in a partially unlooped state, it proves that the hairpin is ready to involve itself in either in the looped form or in the unlooped form, depending upon the need of the gene regulation pathway. So and slowly, while the concentration of magnesium ions increased, it was found that we got a good number of population in the partially unlooped state, followed by a population in the fully formed hairpin or a looped state. But in presence of calcium chloride, which is also a divalent cation, it is like the population in the partially dissociated state got lessened. Now next, okay, so so next, the Watson-Crick bonds in the triplex motif has been evaluated. For that, the donor has been labeled in the hairpin and the acceptor has been labeled in the polypyrimidine stretch. So I'll just put it aside. Okay, so here in presence of sodium chloride, what was found is that we get a high FRET state, which corresponds that Watson-Crick bond formation do take place in presence of monovalent cations. That means the final structure which is coming out of here is that the hairpin is not getting involved into any kind of bonds. The hairpin is in an open loop form, but one strand of the hairpin is involving itself in Watson-Crick bonds with a polypyrimidine stretch. Next, upon addition of magnesium chloride, we could see high FRET state. So here, basically, the hairpin formation do take place along with involving itself in a triplex with a polypyrimidine stretch. So slowly, upon increasing the magnesium concentration, it was found that the Watson-Crick bonds are getting more static. Like there is less fluctuation with less fluctuation of this polypyrimidine stretch from the hairpin upon increment in the magnesium ion concentration in the medium. So next, the reverse Hookstein bonds while getting involved in the triplex motif has been evaluated. For that, the donor and the acceptor has been labeled right in the hairpin, and one unlabeled single-stranded polypyrimidine stretch has been used. So here what we got is that in presence of 2 millimolar of magnesium chloride, there is a huge population at high FRET state, which proves that reverse Hookstein bonds when part of a triplex are more intact. As we remember that while evaluating the Watson-Crick bond while in a part of a triplex, what we got is that in 2 millimolar of magnesium chloride, the partially looped state or the partially dissociated state is more populated than the fully looped state of the Watson-Crick bond. But in presence of while as a part of triplex motif, these reverse Hook-Steen bonds are much more intact. And in presence of high concentration of magnesium, what we found is that there is a huge population in the high Fred state, or a fully looped or a compact compact of reverse Hook-Steen bonds while part of a triplex motif. So next, one phenomenon called J factor and Gibbs free energy has been calculated. So physically, J factor means that the probability of finding one end of a DNA of a single strand DNA close to the other end of the single strand DNA. So what was found is that even in presence of different magnesium concentration, we found that there is a there is a difference in distribution of population between the partially looped state or a fully looped state or unlooped state. But while calculating the J factor, what we found is that J factor is more or less constant while we have the same sequence. So so while calculating the probability of finding one end of the DNA to that of the other end, that come out to be almost equal, even in various concentration of magnesium ions. And free energy change shows that the hairpin has much lesser free energy than that of the triplex motif. So upon calculation of the free energy change of Watson-Crick bonds in the triplex motif, what it was found is that delta G is much more negative for Watson-Crick bonds while being part of a triplex motif, but reverse Hook-Steen bonds, while they are part of the hairpin, they have much lesser negativity in the change in Gibbs free energy. So next, in order to evaluate that what might be the time taken for a polypyrimidine stretch of DNA being involved in a double-stranded form to unzip from its cognate partner and form a triplex with the hairpin, another experiment was designed where the donor was labeled in the hairpin and the acceptor is labeled on a double-stranded DNA. Acceptor is labeled on the polypyrimidine residue of a double-stranded DNA. Now, at 0 minute, as you can see in the screen of the camera, we could see molecule only in the donor channel. There is no molecule in the Is there any question?
So, Devolina, sorry to interrupt. So we are running a little late. So
Okay. Yeah,
kindly
yeah.
you
I'm just going to
quickly wrap up your presentation.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah. So yeah, so as we can see that initially there are only molecules in the donor channel. That means right now the polypyrimidine stretch has not unzipped itself and has involved itself in the formation of the triplex motif, as we cannot see anything in the acceptor channel. But after 2 hours that we could see that there is a huge population in the acceptor channel. That means this polypyrimidine stretch of DNA has unzipped itself from its cognate double-stranded DNA and has involved itself in the triplex formation. So here is a histogram distribution of that. So at 0 minute, we have only low Fred state population. But as the time increases, there is a kickstart of formation of the triplex motif at 45 minutes. And after that, at around 2 hours, we could see that substantial number of polypyrimidine stretch of DNA involved in double-stranded DNA has unzipped itself and finally formed a triplex motif. So the final output of this experiment came out to be that it almost takes 2 hours for this polypyrimidine stretch to unzip itself and finally form a triplex. Next, what might be the fate of the hairpin when being exposed to a double-stranded DNA? So for that, another real-time experiment was carried out in which the polypurine residue has been labeled with both donor and acceptor, and a double-stranded DNA has been exposed to it. What was found is that when this hairpin is exposed to double-stranded gene, there occurs unzipping of the hairpin as well. So we get a huge population in low Fred state, which proves that the hairpin unzips itself before getting involved into the triplex motif. So basically the hairpin goes through a partial open state before participating in the triplex formation. So the final model come out to be like this. Okay, so here there was a GIF animation. I think we would be not able to see that. So yeah, so the model goes out like this. So you have a hairpin So when, you have an open loop, a long stretch of polypurine residues interrupted by 5-thymidine units. When this is exposed to divalent ion, it gets extrapolated into hairpin. And when this hairpin gets exposed to a double-stranded DNA having a cognate polypyrimidine stretch, what happens? Both the hairpin and the double-stranded DNA undergoes unzipping. And finally, there is formation of a triplex motif. So thank you all for being present. And I want to acknowledge my supervisor, my lab members, and funding agencies. So if you have any question, please.
Thank you, Devolina, for your nice talk. So we are running late. So if anyone has any question, you can write to the chat box, and Devolina, please answer the question in the chat box.
Okay, yeah, sure.
So I want to thank all the speakers and the audience for joining in this such wonderful session. So now we will be ending this session. Our next session starts from 2 p.m. So kindly join into our next session. And thank you.
Thank you, everybody. We will see you at 2 p.m. Gangeya,